get water.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
Tim, did you see that I didn't change any better times? No.
See, and so I get up and make coffee, then I go out.
So I just split the 5 between you.
So many 56.
That's because he's gonna try to contact everyone that comes to the hall. Yep.
World.
Grab that. Oh, I'll have somebody, can you grab the door? Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna call this meeting to order. We'll stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Morning.
I just have to make its announcement.
Here.
It's on.
Yeah, we just took
I
it
just
away.
noticed that. Oh, okay. There you go.
Good announcement, thank you.
Okay, could I get approval of the county board minutes that were sent?
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Jelinski, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Lemire. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not at this time.
Seeing none, can I get a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Wincher, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Lemire. Any further discussion? If none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, Little Falls Airport. Welcome, Greg.
Morning, Greg.
So this morning before you, we have the,
Is now joining.
That one's new.
so before you, we have the bids for our crack sealing project out at the Little Falls Airport. We had a number of different options out there. I think there were 4 alternates that we were looking at doing, which basically covers the entire airport for the crack sealing. The engineer's estimate on the project was $144,700. We had a lot of interest. We got 6 bids on the project. The low bid came from Lot Pros in the amount of $62,173. So this morning, we are asking the board to approve the low bid for $62,173 contingent upon the state grant for the project. It's a 70-30 grant, but we are asking the board for that approval.
So moved.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Jelinski, seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Lemire. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Greg, I'm just curious, and only curious, I'm not questioning it. I'm curious about, is it simply crack sealing?
So they route the cracks out and then they seal them, yes.
Okay,
Yep,
it's not a repave?
Nope.
It's simply crack sealing?
that's correct.
Okay,
Yep.
very good, thank you.
Greg, I noticed that the engineering estimate was 144. How was he so far off?
I don't know. I mean, and you look at the bids, I mean, there were 62,000, 68,000,
Yep.
77, 79. So I don't know if there's just that hungry for work. I'm not sure. And normally we don't see all of these contractors in the area. So I'm guessing there's just that lack of amount of work that people really want the project.
Usually you don't see him that far off. That was
Correct.
the only reason I
Correct.
said.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Next on the agenda, Soil and Water Conservation District. Welcome, everybody. We invited you, the other 2 came with.
I have a few handouts.
Okay. Welcome, Todd and Lance.
The wingman today.
Morning.
Good morning, thank you.
Packet.
Shannon always makes you guys look good, so don't worry.
There we go. And you grab this, we'll get confused by the time we get down to this.
Okay,
Yep.
this one?
And
Oh, the
that's-
whole thing.
Yep, the whole
Okay.
thing, that's all we need.
So, good morning, everyone. My name is Shannon Wetstein, and I'm the district manager at the Morrison Soil and Water. I'm here today with two of my colleagues, Lance Chisholm from our office, who is our water plan coordinator and our easement specialist. And then Todd Holman, who is with the Nature Conservancy and also serves as the Camp Ripley Sentinel Landscape Coordinator. And thank you guys for making room on your agenda today to have us here. And this was something that we had scheduled to be a couple of weeks ago here. So thank you for, postponing and having us come today. But we had, I'd like to think that we were invited by Randy. But what ended up happening is Randy is our ex officio member on our Soil and Water Board, as you guys all know. And we, generally just talk about different programs, different things that are going on. And Todd had come to a meeting a couple months ago. So he had the opportunity to kind of fill us in with all the work that he's doing as the Camp Ripley Sentinel Landscape Coordinator. So I want to just take this opportunity to brief the rest of the board on different things that we're working on in the office, and then answer any questions that you guys thought it might be a nice opportunity to do that, because we hadn't been in front of the board for a while. So first off, just want to talk about, our easement programs. In front of you are a couple of handouts, and I'll get to those. But first, our most famous easement program is the ACUB program, the Army Compatible Use Buffer program. And I don't think that program needs a lot of introduction, other than it's a program that we've been running out of the office for about 15 years. It's been very successful in our partnership with Camp Ripley. It offers them added protection for future training opportunities, but then also for our goals, why it aligns so well with the district is it's protecting resources and habitat into the future perpetually. And then also, I think it does have some long-term economic benefits to the county as a whole to allow Camp Ripley to remain as it is. So that program, and for those of you that were at the planning session last Friday that Lance and Josh Pennington and Amy Feldhage were at, get to talk more in depth about that. So if there's any questions, we can come back to that and answer those. But there are other easement programs that are coming on board now with the state, and I think a lot of it is due to the success that has happened with the ACUB program and seeing the benefits that are coming from that landscape. So they have rolled out some different easement programs, and they run under the same model. They're Reinvest in Minnesota easements, which are held by the state of Minnesota. They use soil and water conservation districts as the mechanism to reach out to landowners and see if there's interest in these programs. And they are all voluntary programs again, so we only work with willing landowners. And the state has identified priority areas that they are investing now Clean Water Fund dollars to work specific programs and offerings to landowners. One of them that has been around for a little bit longer, but that we've been involved with now, and that Mike, Mr. Chair, you'd be familiar with, is the Mississippi Headwater Board program. So that's one of the handouts. And that works easements along the Mississippi River and main tributaries. So we have done a couple of easements around the Platte River, the Swan River. And so we haven't done a lot of easements in this area just because there's not as much potential, because a lot of the area has already been either developed or platted along the Mississippi River in the Morrison County area. But it does stretch through multiple counties, and it has been a program that's been going for a little while. The other program that just came on, I want to say about a year and a half ago, is the Rum River Watershed Easement Program. And this one is out in the eastern part of the county. It follows, the watershed lines of the Rum River watershed. And we do have the west branch of the Rum River and Tibbetts Brook, which would be areas that we've talked with landowners along to see what sort of interest is out there for this program. Now, the whole Rum River is prioritized, so there's more targeted areas that the state would like us to focus on, but Tibbetts Brook and the West Branch are, there's some really pristine properties out there that are going to protect water quality, if they decide to enroll in this program. So we have been talking to landowners out there and have some interest. So the reason we wanted to come here today is kind of get your take on how comfortable the county is with us continuing these easement programs, and then answer any questions that you might have. And with that, I just want to say these other two easement programs are a little bit different than ACUB, right? ACUB has a pretty big footprint that is in Morrison County, crosses over into multiple counties, and we've been working at it for a long time, has an end state goal of about 75,000 acres. These other programs aren't going to approach anywhere near that amount of acreage. It will probably be some really riverfront properties that are forested or that want to do some restoration work on them that we'll be working with on these other programs, which is a little bit harder sell in some cases because like ACUB, it's working lands can enroll, so you can keep farming if you want to. Where RUM, you have to retire your farmland if you are going to go into the program. But again, it's targeting those that are right on waterfront primarily for water quality reasons. But I'll stop there before I get too far ahead. And also, brought Todd here today too because he is the Sentinel Landscapes Coordinator, the Camp Ripley Sentinel Landscapes Coordinator. We haven't talked about that a lot here, and so wanted to be able to have him here for any questions that you guys might have. And then also, of course, Lance has worked ACUB since the beginning of the program, really understands, the landowner interests, questions that they have and how we answer them, and then how it works long-term, as far as, maintenance with these folks and communicating with them. So wanted to have him here too to answer any questions. And again, I appreciate your guys' time. I know you have a big agenda, but we did want to take a few extra minutes of your time to go over and answer any questions you guys have.
Does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Jelinski.
Mr. Chair, I'll just direct this one to Todd and simply ask in 10 words or less. No, I don't mean that. Tell me the difference between ACUB and Sentinel Landscape.
Oh, sure.
I know there's a difference, so if you can.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, the ACUB program, the Army Compatible Use Program, actually started in 2004. And early efforts, Commissioner Blaine even had a hand in the original payment in lieu of taxes effort that was a part of the starting of the Camp Ripley Sentinel Landscape Program. So that was really focused on the 3-mile buffer area to do conservation easements and a little bit of fee acquisition. For example, the Little Nokasippi Wildlife Management Area was created as a part of that. So that was the original ACUB program. it was focused very tightly on that initial buffer. In 2016, actually I should back up one more year. In 2015, the state legislature of Minnesota approved in law a designation for the Camp Ripley program as a state-recognized sentinel landscape. First one in the whole country. Pretty amazing. The country took notice at the DoD level. And in 2016, the Department of Defense, through the Readiness Environmental Protection Integration Group, we call them REPI, 100 acronyms in this business, REPI team designated Camp Ripley as a federal sentinel landscape in 2016, which is when I entered the picture as a coordinator, because the landscape then went from 3-mile buffer out to almost a 10-mile buffer. It's based on watershed boundaries, minor watershed boundaries, but it's about a 10-mile radius. And so it expanded the program from just doing easements and minimal fee acquisition to a whole toolbox of practices, getting funding for agricultural producers and forestry, to bring practices, restoration, education, and outreach out to that whole landscape. So it broadened the program. That's why I was hired to coordinate multiple partners to go beyond what had been already successful in the ACUB program. So now ACUB is a program within the Sentinel landscape. And the Sentinel landscape is 3 federal partners, the USDA, the Department of Defense, and the Department of Interior, and all of their bureaus and agencies under those 3 federal entities. And in short, what it means, I'm way over 10 minutes, I apologize. In short, what it means is, in those federal programs, they have people and funds. If you are designated as a federal Sentinel landscape, which the Camp Ripley program is, you are weighted to get higher attention and score higher. And so that's what we do, that's what I do, we all do, is try to create additional funding to leverage state money with federal money to get to the land to help producers get EQIP dollars, CSP dollars, and other types of program accessibility in that whole Sentinel landscape footprint. Sorry for going more than that.
Excellent. That was a little more than 10 words, but it clicked. Thank you.
Thank you.
Randy, or Commissioner Wincher.
That's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lance, I know you're kind of involved in ACUB. And again, you hear this out and about. Maybe I have more than one question. If someone goes into ACUB, you hear, well, then that goes off the tax base because of that. That's one question. And what can, if someone goes into ACUB, and again, this out there for TV land, is what can they still do in a brief, no, you can go 10 words or more, but, just kind of what can they do, somebody in ag, if they go in the ACUB, can they still do this, they can't do this? And again, the tax-based question.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you. Basically, landowners can do what they are currently. So if they're cropping or haying or pasturing the land, these are working lands easements, they can continue to do that land use. What is not allowed is conversion of woods to make additional cropland. So the cropland they start with is the ag land that they can continue to put into production. Another restriction would be surface or subsurface mining, open gravel pits. And the third thing would be the residential or commercial building within easement acres. So they wouldn't be able to put up a 7-Eleven or another residence within easement acres. They can continue to recreate it, do forest management for habitat and the welfare of the woods. So basically, and another allowable use would be if they can build structures in easement acres if it supports their ag operation, a hay shed, turkey barn, poultry barn. So if it supports an agricultural operation, those types of grain bins, those types of structures may be built in easement acres, but it has to support that ag operation.
And another question is if someone goes into ACUB, and if you're got something in ACUB, if I buy it from you, does that go away or does that stay with the land?
It goes with the land in perpetuity, so that these easements go with the land forever. So it's going to keep that rural character there forever and ever. And we do have some information on taxes that we worked with the county assessor's office and kind of looked long-term at different tax classifications, homesteaded, rural, rec, and the land values have not gone down due to these easements, from what we can see.
Thank you.
The land does stay on the tax rolls.
Okay, yeah. And I guess one other thing, we have this conversation, we have in Commissioner Lemire's area, someone that may want to develop, develop an area along Lake Alec, and there's going to be a lot of questions. Can they contact Soil and Water? Is there a number that they can get a hold of you? Because there's, again, our land services gets a lot of questions, and moving forward, that's probably going to be something that a lot of people are going to need information on.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Randy, they can definitely call our office. You know, we've been working easements for a long time. Lance, Amy, and myself in the office are all available to answer questions. So if they call our main line, 320-631-3551, and then they can either speak to Lance, Amy, or myself about easements or about the program that we've been working in that area. Hopefully that alleviates some of the pressure that Land Services gets, or Mr. Lemire with the questions that you might be getting. You can always direct them to our office.
Perfect, thank you.
Commissioner Blaine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Shannon, fellows, thank you for being here. Thank you for the information. I have two questions for you. Number one, when we're looking and talking about a conservation easement, or when we get questions from the public like this, and this is stated in here, this is a binding agreement between the property owner and the Board of Water Soil Resources. What happens with that agreement when the property would change hands? If let's say the property owner passes away, and the property is then, let's say, deeded, gifted, whatever, to family, or let's say during the property owner's life, he decides to sell that property to a neighbor or someone else. What is the action that would take place with that binding contract?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Blaine, or Commissioner Blaine, we've seen these lands change ownership time and time again. So our office does have a requirement to monitor these easements. So annually, we sit down and we get a list of the easements to be monitored. But we check every easement to verify who the current owner is. It's up to the landowner in the agreement to contact Soil and Water within 30 days of ownership change. That doesn't always happen, but we do check and verify ownership annually. And then we reach out to the new landowner and we set up a meeting, and what we do is sit down with the new landowner and go over the entire program with them to explain what the easement is. And then we also ask them to sign a new conservation plan that goes along with every property that's eased, and we kind of spell up what's going on out there, what are the restrictions, and so that the new landowners are always kept abreast and understand what's going on. So we do meet with the landowners if they've changed.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, so Lance, is it fair to say that the length of the contract runs the length of the ownership of the land by the property owner? Or I'm looking for clarification. So if I'll use myself as an example. If I enter into a conservation easement agreement, and I sell that piece of property, does the buyer of the property then, do I need to notify him that this has a conservation easement on it that would restrict development or anything like that? And would that easement continue under the new property owner automatically? Or is that something that the new property owner would have to engage in either continuing, discontinuing, or ending? Tell me how that would work.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Blaine, it goes with the property. It's legally described and placed on that property. That easement lays on the legally described property forever. Whoever owns that land. And we work closely with Land Services to update the easements through the beacon system, as you've all seen that before, keeping that up to date. So if there's ever a permitted activity that needs to be, those landowners know and Land Services knows there's an easement on that property. But again, we reach out to the communication is 99% of it, working with the local landowners and keeping them abreast and welcoming them to the program when new ownership takes place.
So, Lance, so then that leads me to the next question would be, for those individuals who are, I'll say, land prospectors or people who look to invest in property, whether it's for development or personal accumulation, when they would look, let's say, on our beacon site or on public site to view property within Morrison County, is it available to them or outlined to them that these specific properties have a lifetime conservation easement on them?
Yes, so the easement itself is recorded
In the recorder's
county.
office.
So typically, when there's a land transaction, there's typically title insurance involved. So, working with a title company, and so if they did a title search, those easements will show
Okay.
on the land title.
Okay. Very good. I have one other question, Mr. Chair, if I may. To Shannon, and I appreciate you asking the board for our input or our thoughts on how we view these programs and the amount of land or the amount of property that may be targeted to be in the easement programs. I'm just, you said that there's X amount of land in the ACUB program, but we're talking about some of the other easement programs out there. Is there a goal by your office or Soil and Water that looks at, let's say, in the next 5 years or the next decade, that we have X amount of acres of land that would be enrolled in easement programs?
So that's a great question. For ACUB, we definitely have our goals, which are that end state number that I mentioned earlier. For the Mississippi Headwater Board, we have looked at the potential, and there's just not a ton of potential of properties because we're looking at larger properties on riverfront. So unfortunately, we haven't within the office developed a goal for that because there's just not a lot of potential in that program. The Rum River area as a whole is developing right now some goals for the entire watershed for that program. But the Morrison County area is not a priority 1 or even 2, I'll say it that way. So the state will be awarding money in the future, and then we will work the properties that have really the highest benefit for habitat and for water protection. But it's going to be, again, a limited number of properties. So at this time, we don't have specific acreage goals like we do for ACUB.
So thank you for mentioning the state, because that goes to where my last question will be. Does your office get directed goals by the state, by whether it's Bowser or state of Minnesota, Minnesota DNR, as goal setting for easement acres within Morrison County, within your jurisdiction?
So it's another great question, and the short answer is no. The goals really are being developed as part of these One Watershed, One Plan efforts. So it's the local government units that are setting the goals that we would like to see on the landscape in our particular regions. The state, though, is the one that has the checkbook, right? So if we set goals and say, we want to do 2,000 acres in the next year along the Rum River, the state says, okay, great, you've got that down on paper. Now we'll see how much money we have to dedicate to that program at the end of the year. So that's how we work, and that's how the goal-setting process works. Did that answer your question?
That did answer my question, and thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anybody have any other questions?
Mr. Chair, might I just ask one more question of Lance? And that is, my property is now in ACUB. I do not have a home on that property, and pick a number, there's 120 acres of property that's in ACUB. I can, through the contract, pick out an area where I'm going to build a home, and that's gonna be okay, because I believe I'm allowed to have a residence on my ACUB property. I can also build a shed and things like that, but only one residence. You just got done saying that it supports agriculture. So if I want to build a hog barn, if I want to build a chicken barn, if I want to increase my dairy operation and so on, that's allowed by ACUB. But I also have people working for me, and I need to, or I want to furnish housing for those people. Fine line. Is there now room for an additional home? It's in ACUB. Didn't know that I was going to do this at the time. Can I build another home for my hired help? Supporting agriculture. That's all.
Chairman, Mr. Commissioner, very, very fine. So when we work these easements with the landowner, we allow one possible future building site. And so those lands are excluded from the easement. They're not paid on those. And you know, they may take 5 acres excluded for a potential future building site. Only one 911 address can be assigned to that future building site. So going back, I think that becomes more of a land services type of ordinance. Only one 911 address may be built in that envelope.
Perfect. Good answer.
Sounds good. Does anybody else have any other questions? If not, we thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Good to see you, Todd.
guys.
Great to see all of you.
Thank you all
Great
very
to be
much.
seen.
You bet. You too.
Next, social service report. Brad?
Morning, Brad.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. All
Morning,
right,
Brad.
good morning. On the social service report, I have a request for a capital improvement. And as you may recall, we brought this on May 25th. Amy Middendorf, our IT director, and myself brought this a request to update our VPN appliance as well as purchase licenses. Our VPN appliance is out of service August of 2022. But more importantly, we cannot update that device to be compliant with our federal requirements. And so we brought this requesting the ability to do this, and you did allow us to get it. However, I need to come back here and get the formal approval of the board for the purchase.
Can I get a motion?
Make a motion to approve,
Got a
Mr. Chair.
motion by Commissioner Lemire, seconded by Commissioner
Second.
Jelinski. Is there any further discussion on this? Not all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And then I have one public health RBA, and that is to approve a new establishment license for Nielsen Hardware and to approve a new mobile food license for Running Tacos.
Can I get a motion on that?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Blaine, seconded by Commissioner Wincher. Is there any further discussion? None, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Good morning. That's all I have this morning.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
It is a good morning.
Yes, it
Thanks,
is.
Brad.
Chelsea said hurry, so I
How
did.
about public health? Public health is too?
He did, yep.
Oh, that was all of it, okay. Next, land service report. My computer's not up, that's why. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning, Miss Amy.
All right, I have two items for you today. The first one is to consider the conditional use permit application for Kevin and Linnell Vetch. This is to establish a Tier 2 dairy feedlot. This was recommended for approval by the Planning Commission at their June 1st meeting, and they recommended this with 3 conditions. And those conditions are to abide by local and state law, notify the road authority when hauling manure during road restrictions, and then abide by the good neighbor feedlot odor minimization and stormwater plans.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Got a motion by Commissioner Blaine, seconded by Commissioner Wincher. Is there any further discussion? Not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you. And then the last item I have is to consider the conditional use permit for Daniel Sobiek, and this is to establish a Tier 3 swine feedlot. This was also recommended for approval by the Planning Commission at their May 25th meeting. This was recommended with 5 conditions.
Is now exiting.
And those 5 conditions are abide by local and state law, notify road authority when hauling manure during road restrictions, abide by the good neighbor feedlot odor minimization and stormwater plans. The feedlot owner shall notify the feedlot officer of manure cleanout, and the feedlot owner shall install the catch basin as designed by the building architect at the time of barn construction.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
We got a motion by Commissioner Blaine, seconded by Commissioner Lemire. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you, board. That's all I have for you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Next, Auditors Report, Chelsea. Good morning, Chelsea.
Morning, Chelsea.
Morning. All right, first on the agenda, I am requesting an approval to amend the approved time on the Pierce Freedom Fest Large Assembly application. The original application was approved 2 p.m. to midnight, with the gates opening at 3 p.m. The amendment request is to approve 1 p.m. to midnight with the gates opening at 2 p.m. I received this request by phone as the headliner lineup has changed, and so they're requesting a change of time to allow a new contract to be signed for entertainment.
So moved.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Jelinski, seconded by Commissioner Blaine. Any further discussion? I do. Their headliner backed out last week, and they got 2 other bands coming in, so that's why they need the extra time, because they added another band because their headliner pulled out, but they got 2 good headliners now at the end, so just one of those unfortunate things that they can do. You got a contract, but they're kind of one-way contracts. So, all right, any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Next on the agenda, I have before you an application for repurchase of a forfeited property. The request is to approve the application for tax forfeited lands in the amount of $23,894.53. If I could, Mr. Chair, these applications don't come before you a lot, but by law, they do have repurchase rights And so they have requested the repurchase in the amount of time frame. So this has to come before you for approval before we can initiate a change in title.
Okay, can I get a motion on this?
So move for more discussion.
Commissioner Wincher, seconded by Commissioner Jelinski. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Wincher?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So when the applicant is gonna repurchase, are they gonna come up with a 24,000 roughly, or do we put them on a payment plan? How does that work?
Good question. So when the application came in, we received the check amount as well for the repurchase. So we have the funds holding right now. When they look to repurchase a property, they have to pay all the delinquent tax, current taxes, any assessments, penalties, any costs and interest that is laid out in the last years. So we have them paying the last delinquent on record along with the current taxes. So we have those funds held in our office, and then if board approved, we verify that the funds cleared the bank, and then we request a state deed for change of title.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Jelinski?
this isn't property that was purchased by someone else due to delinquent taxes, and now due to law, the people still have a certain amount of time to purchase it back? Or can you explain, was this property simply delinquent taxes and now, I'm assuming family member, well, I know, family member is now repurchasing it due to simply tax forfeiture?
Correct.
Okay.
So if a piece of property goes delinquent, there's the delinquency process of 3 years, and then we have a year of tax forfeit. And then depending on the time frame and depending on if it's homestead or non-homestead, they have certain rights for repurchase. So this said land was forfeited on the first day of December, and they had 6 months to redeem, and so we received this application before June 1st, and so now this is coming before you.
Very good, thank you.
Okay, any more questions? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Next on the agenda, I have a request to approve a raffle for the Hillman Area Whitetail Management Association to hold a raffle on December 4th of this year at Brothers Porcupine Bar and Grill.
Can I get a motion on that?
So,
Okay, we got a
Second.
motion by Commissioner Blaine, seconded by Commissioner Lemire. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And last on the agenda, I have a request for a roll call vote to approve the warrants.
Mr. Chair, a motion to pay all the bills.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Jelinski, seconded by Commissioner Wincher. Any further discussion? If not, Commissioner Lemire,
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher,
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine. And aye, Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you.
It passed, thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Next, we have Public Works. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Morning, Steve.
I have 2 requests for board actions for you today to consider. The first being contract 291, which was from last year's construction with Anderson Brothers. We almost made it to the end zone with this contract, but we had that early snow event. We shut that operation down and had to finish up our resurfacing of County State Aid Highway 52 on the west side of Little Falls this spring. This work has been completed. The list of projects, individual resolutions for all the projects that were tied to this contract are included. We recommend that the board would authorize us to make final payment and certify completion on this contract.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Got a motion by Commissioner Lemire, seconded by Commissioner Wincher. Is there any further discussions? If not, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Wincher.
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaine.
Aye.
And aye, and Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we had included in your packet a request for board action to grant a license. It was listed as Doucette Landscaping and Contracting. As the board remembers, we've already issued this license several weeks ago. It should have read Marvin Treader Incorporated. And our request is that the board would issue a solid waste hauler's license to Marvin Treader Incorporated. He is in compliance with the ordinance, and it's our recommendation that the board would issue this license.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Got a motion by Commissioner Jelinski, seconded by Commissioner Blaine. Is there any further discussion? Not all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just want to relate to Steve that I had someone call me and say how good a job they are because they're going down one of the roads that are being milled or whatever, how the flag people were doing, and it was very courteous, very good. So I want to let you know that you got good people out there helping.
Thank you very much. I'll pass that on to them.
Please do.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, next, Administrator's Report.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to take a minute to introduce a new face to you. Kaylee Becker is with us today. She's going to intern with us in our office this summer. And we're excited to have her, and hopefully she can fill in and help us bridge a gap here with some different projects. And maybe she can teach us something, we can teach her something, and I'm excited to have that partnership moving forward. And it's an internship through Sourcewell, so it's one of those opportunities. So we're glad to have you. Welcome.
Fantastic.
Welcome.
And then, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to let you guys know that tomorrow we have a full day of training for payroll processing. So we're moving along with our new payroll system. I've been very pleased with employees and their engagement, and they're working with us when it comes to that transition. We all know change is difficult, but everybody's really stepped up and helped us accomplish this goal. And I've gotten some good feedback in terms of the visibility of information. I think we've gotten kinks worked out as we've worked through the process, which is bound to happen when it comes to so much data and so many specifics and all of the different rules that we have applied. But the team of Steve and Amy and Beth and Melissa have done a great job really spearheading that transition. And so I want to say thanks to all the staff for making that happen. And tomorrow's a big day, so we'll be in the office working on it. And other than that, Mr. Chair, I don't have anything unless anybody's waiting for me on anything or has anything to add.
Okay, thank you. Tabitha, what are our calendar dates? Next is June 13th through the 26th. Commissioner Jelinski, would you mind starting us off today?
I'll start things off this morning, Mr. Chair. On the 14th at 8 o'clock in the morning, there's an AMC District 5 meeting that's in Mille Lacs County. At 5 o'clock that same evening, I believe we're scheduled for a Board of Equalization meeting here at the Government Center in the boardroom. On the 15th, 8:30 in the morning, we are scheduled for a planning session here in the boardroom. And at 6 p.m., there's a Planning Commission Board of Adjustment meeting. On the 16th, there should be a department head meeting at 2. At 3:30, I have a State Emergency Communication Board Chairs meeting, which is like an executive committee. And at 5 o'clock that evening, I have a Hands of Hope meeting. On Thursday, the 17th, at 10 o'clock in the morning, I have a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board Owners and Operators meeting. At 2 o'clock, and although I don't know for a fact right now, at 2 o'clock, and I believe this is going to happen weekly, I'm hooked into that 911 Federal Communication Diversion Program that I'm just not sure on how often that they're meeting, but I believe it's going to be a weekly meeting for the work group that I'm on. That should be at 2 o'clock, and that's all virtual. On the 21st, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I've got a State Emergency Communications Board meeting dealing with the State of Communication Interoperability Plan, dealing with their strategic plan. That's meeting number 2, and that starts at 1 o'clock. That's virtual. On the 22nd, we should have a board meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning. On the 24th at 12:30 in the afternoon, I should have a State Emergency Communications Board meeting, and Mr. Chair, that should complete what I have on my calendar.
Thank you, Commissioner Jelinski. Commissioner Blaine?
Mr. Chair, on Monday, the 21st, at 6 PM, the townships from District 5 will meet here with Amy Kowalczyk from Land Services on our ordinance review. And on the 24th at 6 PM should be a Region 5 Development Commission meeting. And other than that, I believe this one will be at Sourcewell. I believe other than that, I think I'm good.
Okay, I've got on the 17th, Little Rock Watershed from 9 to 11:30. I've got the airport at noon. And on the 25th, I've got Mississippi Headwaters at 9 o'clock. And I've got the SCHSAE, that's the Health Board, with the 5 counties, at 1 o'clock.
On Friday?
Yes, and that's all I've got. Commissioner Lemire.
14th of June, I got Camp Ripley Citizen Committee at 11 o'clock. And also on that same day, Yellow Ribbon Committee, 5:30.
You know where that's gonna be?
It has been Zoom, but I don't usually find out till the day of. And that's it.
Commissioner Wincher.
Okay, I have a Great River Regional Library at 5:30 in St. Cloud. That would be on the 15th. TCC on the 24th at 5:30 here in Little Falls. And I have a Soil and Water on the 25th here at the boardroom at 8 o'clock in the morning, and that should button me up.
Tabitha, we need to check with Brad on that health board on Friday, because normally those are on Wednesdays or Thursdays, normally not a Friday afternoon. So I need to check and see, and I got the invite here, but I need to check and see what that's all about. Okay? All right, is there anything else? Otherwise, can I get a motion to adjourn? Motion. Commissioner Blaine, seconded by Commissioner Lemire. Any further discussion? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.